Let's go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dirty 20 Gaming's Sunday night game, Stars Without Number. Our virtual tabletop is Roll20. Our models are provided by Hero Forge. Our overlay is provided by OBS. Art assets have been provided by Pixabay, and our music is provided by bensound.com.
Michael reminded me I need to do this today. I feel like this is the worst possible day, but fine. Stardate, May 25th, 3,200. I've been attempting to understand, everything. I guess waking. It doesn't matter now anymore. What matters is the mission. I had wanted to do this alone, but I'm learning that the other officers, Booker, Maiko, and Gerard, aren't like everyone else. I mean, I used to spend almost all my time alone, and now the plan is to sneak onto the research station dressed as nobles, which I have no clue what to do. I mean, I come from BFE. Now I'm supposed to be Hunter of House Green, and I'm trying. I've just never had anyone... I mean, it's fine. As long as we stick to the plan and play this like one of the AI's VR RPGs, it should be fine. I can hack into anything. But interacting with other sentient beings has been a lot harder. Fight over now. P.S. Holy shit, I got kissed by a really attractive human. Ah!
So we rejoin our crew as they are departing from the Codex. The shuttle, which took Jumet away through the atmosphere to the other cities that are planetside, has returned with Nico aboard. The three of you have snuck past a small array of dinosaurs to get to the shuttle, some of which sniffed very interestedly at Rollo before the llama was, gotten aboard the shuttle. And Nico kind of raised a finger, had questions, but decided they could wait until they were back aboard the Proximakers.
Mike is like, "Hi,
Nico!" And then quickly took off. He says, chatter aboard the station, the refueling station and the planet has been going a little crazy since I dropped your May off.
Is that a good thing?
He says, I think it's their code or something. He says they're talking about, ships being diverted to different places for landing and trade, but I think there's some kind of code words embedded in it. He says it's a lot more than it was, 10 hours ago.
Sounds like she's getting her system back up and running.
He says they're busy across a dozen channels at least.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a quick, there's the pull of gravity as the shuttle pulls out from planet side. Nico's definitely hightailing it. Probably exits a little bit harder than he has to, but he's determined to get everybody back to the Proxima as fast as possible.
It's all right, Nico. We're not in much danger.
We're fine. This is fine.
He nods.
This is fine.
So, what's that?
That would be a genetically modified llama from the Codex.
2 questions. One is, how did you get it? And 2, what's llama?
That's
a llama is a llama is a small quadrupedal animal. I believe it's cloven-hooved, cloven-hooved animal, often used their fur to make many different kinds of clothing.
Meanwhile, Michael is
spits.
Totally checking to see if it has hooves and if they're cloven. Which I don't actually know about a llama. Anyway, Michael is totally...
Last thing is that this is... the llama, how we got it is we asked very nicely, and the AI Codex gave it to us.
he's trying to explain this, like Booker's trying to explain this, and Maiko is just like, his name is Rolo, like underneath, like is completely chattering, like his name is Rolo, and I think he has hooves. It looks like he has hooves. Look at his fur. His fur is so special. His fur is just like mine, like kind of like mine. If I had fur, like I think that my fur would actually be like his fur, and it's kind of like we match. And it was this lady that was guarding the codex, and she was totally rad, and she made a bunch of llamas, but like this is the only one that I got to keep. I tried to keep all
I
of
don't see
them.
her ending anytime soon.
And Nico listens like very interested. Like the entire mining crew seems to really enjoy the constant chatter that Mike can bring. Although Nico does at one point like reach into his jumpsuit and tug out a handkerchief and offer it towards Bite, and kind of like, you got something.
Oh, God. Thank you.
That's
also what happened.
Fixed her vac suit and apparently had time to put on lipstick.
She's got a charisma of 18. There's always time to put on.
Come on. When it's important, you find the time.
It's true.
So the trip back is talkative. Nico's getting an update.
All of the updates.
And he quickly and smoothly, pulls into the shuttle bay of the Proxima Icarus. The airlock's open. Rolo kind of sticks one head around a corner. Definitely of the, a prey animal looking for predators kind of body language.
The excited chatter, as soon as the airlock opens, the excited chatter switches from common speak to the other language. Okar. Thank you.
Yeah. So, Gerard, you have been in, a state of recovery that about just a few hours ago was interrupted with Ade coming in, and it's like Atticus is requesting you on the bridge.
I'll be there shortly.
They, she kind of brings you up to speed on the situation that the away team had been sent down. They were going after the codex that Jemay had said was important. She had strict orders to, take good care of you. But Atticus said, the chief is there. And he says, I'm getting shuttle movement. He says, from our shuttle planet side. He says, Nico said he was making a drop off. He says, a little while after he did, he says, the communication networks across the planet just started lighting up.
This was after he broadcast his, or
this was after he dropped off his cargo. He didn't say what it was, but I'm guessing there's only one thing that was on the shuttle that he'd be circumspect about.
Right. And what are we seeing in this increased chatter that you mentioned?
He kind of flicks a couple channels, and he points out that there's a lot of automated text to speech, which isn't garbage. It's just kind of speech to text, which is like picking up what it is, just printing it out. They're talking, cargo manifests, shipping, a lot of things that are cover for talking numbers and moving quickly. Does that make sense? And you see in the background what was kind of is clearly already beginning to analyze the patterns. Does that make sense? Trying to work it from a mathematical angle.
Right. Any of this from a news source, or is this increasing from local chatter?
He says it all looks local. He says a lot of these places are discussing shipping paths. He says, and from what I can tell, they have no business in shipping.
Kind of like our friends, the salvagers who weren't salvaging.
He says, I don't know how much of this, he says, belongs to, he says, the rebel types, he says, and how much of it belongs to SBS in the military.
Right now, let's work on the assumption that it's the SBS in the military.
He says, I'd go the opposite way. He says they can afford encryption com.
Not if they're hunting.
Says, fair enough. He says, and we might be looking at it wrong. It might be a mix of both.
Could be. As soon as Bite gets back, have him take a look at this, see what he can make out of it.
Logos, chimes in like none of these channels appear to be encrypted or protected. It's largely a matter of known code networks that have been distributed beforehand.
Still doesn't make any sense to me, Logos, and Bite understands all this better than I do.
Logos says, but I believe that you have been much closer to a war than Bite has.
Yeah, let's see if we can look at it from an administrative point of view.
Logos kind of like, then three things would be necessary: supplies, destinations, and times of delivery.
Exactly. And what we want to pick out are the things that don't line up.
Yeah, he begins working on that. What I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you make a. You can just check this skill list real quick, see what I find the most applicable. Since I'm assuming that there's a degree of like subterfuge involved in sneaking that is beyond just the physical, that it can be the sort of background of that sort of spy trade work, I'm going to let you use that or connect as a role in coordination with wisdom, and you'll get a +2 from Logos' analyzing.
Right. We'll use connect. And come up with a 0 somehow.
Let's just look at the actual number that was rolled. It's been a little odd sometimes.
Did you type in +2,
like
or did you just
straight
type
one
in
was
2?
rolled, though.
Oh, I typed in +2. Okay, that would be what did it.
Yeah.
I don't think we can do negative modifiers with that little window.
Yeah, I think the +2 threw the formula off.
So it looks like it comes out to a 10 now.
6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, 10.
Okay, so it's actually quite a bit of work, but after sort of reviewing what little you do know about like the rebel forces and some cross-referencing with like the like history news articles that you can access from the ship, the guess is that this is actually the code network of the rebels activating different cells and beginning to coordinate a planet-wide operation. And that as yet there's no military response or even military awareness that a counterattack or that an attack is happening.
They're moving fast. All right. Logos, where's the rest of the command crew?
This will be, you'll have kind of gathered, what's moving where and who and how fast they're moving by the time the rest of the crew is arriving. So the shuttle lands, doors open. You guys can greet each other from there. Atticus is remaining on the bridge.
Logos, I need you to make sure that a small robot follows around Rolo, the llama, sort of llama. Just make sure it picks up any droppings. This is supposed to be a clean ship, not a pen.
I'll make him an enclosure. I'll clean up.
That's
after.
great, but still, until when walking through the halls, small little guy would be helpful.
Yeah, welcome back, Captain. It looks
Oh,
like
sure.
our friend is already in action, and something big is going to be happening really soon.
Isn't that part of the plan?
That is part of the plan.
Hi,
Sorry,
Trod. Are you
we haven't
feeling
been.
better? I have a llama. Look. His name is Rollo, and he's beautiful.
Some kind of domesticated animal?
Feel his fur? You want to feel his fur? You totally want to feel his fur.
His
It's
fur
really,
is
really soft.
metallic, by the way. It looks like almost like steel, like woven steel wool, except something of like a shinier quality to it.
And softer, you said, right? It was similar to...
Yeah.
So, like, a little bit, like,
Maybe
wiry
later.
hair.
Maybe later.
We were unable to send messages as they were being, what was it, jammed by the SBS at the time? And as well as once we were actually in the Codex, we were unable to make any communications that way either.
Well, this is definitely not being jammed. It doesn't even look like the surface military is aware that this is going on.
That's good for now. We want a good full force counterattack for what our next plan is. We're going to infiltrate the larger SBS headquarters so we can start defunding them and take out some key players.
I may have been in recovery longer than I think I have. I'm sorry, you've gone to the Codex already and now are planning to destabilize the government?
Stabilize it enough for a new regime to be able to reestablish itself, for the old regime to be able to reestablish itself.
So the Codex isn't what we thought.
Orpheus has asked if we help him protect them.
The Codex is sentient.
It's an AI.
Oh, okay, I'm taking it that the Codex then is Orphea?
Orphea
Yes.
is the Codex, is what the AI calls herself. And she has some sort of gene printer, basically, or a translator, where she can take the genetic information that's stored inside of her and translate it into actual creatures. Really cool ones.
That's how we were able to find the llama.
She made the llama for me.
And also why the llama doesn't look like a regular llama is supposed to.
Because she made it for me.
I see.
I wonder if it
What-
can have little llamas.
What are the details? Probably not Mako, not without another llama. What are the details of this destabilization?
They want to dress me up as a noble and have me be the face of the group to sneak us in.
Because you're the one that needs the sneaking in to do the things with stuff.
Byte is required to hack into their systems and cannot do that from a secondary location.
What is the location that we are getting into?
A
Out of
research
character.
station.
Oh,
I'm sorry?
It's a research station.
It's an orbital station, and assuming that the shuttle bay has some sort of like view screens or windows, Maiko's just gonna be like that.
Yeah.
Like,
So
bring it up for Maiko.
So the station is Rusa 6, and it's it is a research station that has been converted to the military hub slash planetary governor's residence for the planet. It's in orbit around the planet. And like visually, the design is very aesthetic. Like, you know, it's been purposed for military purposes, but that wasn't the original design. The original design is much more like smooth lines and, curved or spherical edges. There's a number of kind of like pods and bubbles that come off of it that look like where they could isolate particular labs from the rest of the station. And a single central dock that only allows like shuttle-sized access.
And you were just going in as a noble.
We're going in as a noble from the House Green of the hierarchy of Baal.
At least you've got that much information. If this has been converted to military use, they're not going to allow just anyone in because they're nobility.
No.
What is the association of House Green and Ball to the military?
The hierarchy, we are relying a bit more on Maiko for that information.
So they already have quite a lot of funding, but it's possible they'll always want more. Hierarchy is good for that. Hierarchy is also good for some raw materials. And DM, am I missing anything?
The hierarchy has stability. The biggest thing that it has compared to almost every other sector is that once they get their digs into a planet, it's very hard to get them back out. They do that through some tiered wealth sharing that other groups aren't willing to do quite as much. And they also take a long time for their planets to achieve that kind of stability, but they really build for the long term. They're looking to build estates that they can pass off to their great-great-grandchildren. So the advantage of an alliance with the hierarchy is that you would presumably have very stable allies who would be unlikely to go back on their word out of convenience.
As well as
the way that Maiko's gonna phrase that is gonna be probably in I want to say in kind of a roundabout way, because she was not always on top of in the know back on her homeworld. So she's probably gonna phrase it in a way like that. And I don't know, the hierarchy is a really good ally. They're really reliable allies. The families grab onto something and they don't let go. So the hierarchy is one of the few organizations that isn't gonna fold overnight if it goes under a little rebellion or something.
Let me make sure I understand the structure then correctly. This is I heard House Green and something Ball. What is the
within
Did
the
I say
hierarchy?
that wrong then? I thought it was the hierarchy of Baal.
Yes.
I've said it wrong then.
No.
hierarchy, House Green of the hierarchy of Ball?
Correct.
All right. It's
Within
best
the
that
hierarchy, there are different houses, and the houses are all playing against each other. Who knows? It's all internal, though. The actual hierarchy itself is kind of a big ship. It doesn't turn very quickly.
Well, for this, we may not need to know the details of the inner workings of the hierarchy, but
I hope not, because that would take a long time to explain.
Being able to state the titles in the proper order is going to be important.
I'm going to be going as Bites Herald, part of his entourage. I don't know, sidekick, entertainment, doesn't really matter. Entourage.
Plan is for me to go as a bodyguard.
And what is Bite's role within the house?
Emissary. So a lot of the best ways for novice nobles to learn to kind of flex their power within the hierarchy is to negotiate with easier targets outside of the hierarchy. The hierarchy considers everybody else a really easy target.
Right.
Just to fill in too, the hierarchy would most houses would be looking for structured ways to use their second and third born male children. So an emissary, such a bite would likely be second or third born. Does that make sense? And basically, like striving to be of use to House Green.
So Maiko's going to translate that as a bite is going to pose as probably like the first or second spare in the House Green, and he's going to be looking for some way to make sure he doesn't continually slide into obscurity within his own house and get ignored by all of his relatives and friends.
How comfortable are you with this bite?
He's not.
Really isn't. You can see it on their face. On his face.
That's why I'm asking.
I understand that I'm kind of the only one who can do it. Because I need to be there. I need to be able to get the stints in. And I need to be able to hack into this. And pull everything away.
Booker?
Idea. I'm waiting for you to ask Shiro, Booker, whatever you're going to ask.
You're more familiar with the military protocols. An emissary of this nature, how likely are they going to be allowed to wander off on their own?
Unlikely. In all likelihood, will be escorted by a guard.
Watch really carefully.
And that guard can be keeping their eyes on the emissary. Am I understanding this correctly?
More so the entourage. The emissary themselves is someone very important, and someone that should not be taken lightly. They are a high-value asset, as opposed to mid-level assets, as the entourage would be. And a mid-level asset is more dangerous than someone that the SPS wants something from.
So, for one of us to get to where we need to and get these spikes installed, the emissary is probably going to be the one most likely to do it? Or is their disappearance going to be more noticed than a member of the entourage?
I'm going to say this, but I would also like the GM to be letting me know if I'm way off base. That the emissary is likely to be able to request permission for an aside or a moment alone than if the entourage were to do the same.
It's common for an emissary to ask for their own sort of suite of rooms and time to refresh themselves from travel before they present themselves formally to whoever they're talking to.
But a suite of that nature is not going to have connections to secured systems and is going to be highly monitored. What
Yes.
we're looking for is someone who's going to be able to separate from the room and get to where they need to go and not necessarily be noticed that they're moving about.
No. However, there is a lovely thing that comes with being an emissary of nobility.
Privacy.
The entitlement. The entitlement that one would have as an emissary is something that they can get away with a lot more. They can get a lot more use out of being, how dare you speak to me? I will go where I please. Damn well be the consequences. If you touch me, all of House Green will descend upon you, and yada yada yada, go on so forth.
I'm familiar with this entitlement and how it is wielded as a weapon. What I'm not familiar with is how the local governance may respond to that. For all we know, that may bite ejected out of an airlock.
The local governance itself, I cannot say because each planet is different. But for SBS, a high-value target, a high-value asset, someone that they actually want something from and can get something very good from is less likely to be airlocked.
Well, so the hierarchy also doesn't really take kindly to rejections of that sort of diplomacy, because the hierarchy is constantly sending out emissaries of this nature to all over the place. If it's known that they can, that emissaries can be airlocked without any kind of punishment and with impunity, then the hierarchy will see that as a threat to their whole diplomacy program. So it would be very, very poor. Excuse me, I knew that was coming. It would be a very poor decision to space anybody from the hierarchy of any importance, honestly.
Something that would weigh in. Mike is very accurate about, their diplomacy program is very important to them. The entitlement that Booker is referencing to is definitely something that in actual practice, I understand that you guys are intending to use it for a different purpose, but in actual practice, all the members of an entourage would tend to be on the very best behavior. Because giving a host excuse means that they don't they basically like cost themselves the protection that is afforded from coming under a different flag.
And Maiko also explains, like, if emissaries can be killed without any kind of punishment, then the great houses are no longer going to send their emissaries out. So it's in all of the great houses' interest to have the hierarchy as a whole come down on that very harshly. And I think SBS would know that, right, Booker?
As one of the
Here's
larger entities, yes.
Yes, each side is going to know if you push the wrong buttons, the other side is going to not play nice. But we're talking about individuals, and individuals will always look at the rules in their own personal interpretations.
I guess my question is, like, I mean, it's really easy to engineer a mishap and have to go to the med bay or something. I mean, I can gush blood if need be from, like, at least 2 hearts. So, I mean, would it be difficult for, or better, I guess, for Giraud to act as emissary? Would they be able to identify you, Giraud? And then perhaps Bite and I could be entourage along with Booker?
Well, it's doubtful they may be able to identify me. I doubt that the Roses have sent my likeness across the galaxy on chance that I might show up anywhere.
Masquerade is in fashion too, so
I'm not overly concerned about us being recognized, simply that we can get to where we need to the most efficient way that we can without drawing the attention of the SBS and perhaps on the rebels themselves.
the rebels might also be working on a diversion as we speak. I don't know that that was part of it, but
They're definitely doing something right now.
they really are. And if we've noticed it, I guarantee you SBS has.
No, it doesn't look like they have yet.
Really?
So what it comes down to, Booker, is what is going to be the most effective way to get Bite to the terminals that Bite needs to get to? Is it acting as a spoiled child of the hierarchy? Will it be requesting access to high security zones? Or would Bite be able to get into where Bite needs to just by splicing a house camera?
Or as an emissary, would I be able to talk to anyone?
As an emissary, would you be able to talk to anyone?
Like, ask for, I don't know how to say this. Ask for some type of, like, audience or whatever with somebody? You said that there was somebody that you needed to see. Bo Camp.
Blomkamp?
That.
Blom Camp?
Blumkamp.
Bloomkamp.
If
Yes.
I get into his office, Booker can do what he needs to. I can do what I need to. And we can get in and get out without being noticed, right?
As the bodyguard, I go with the emissary.
All of this is true as long as getting into this Blomkamp's office gets us to where we need to be.
It'll get us where we need to be much faster than we would if we had to splice a house camera.
The other question that I have for you, Booker, is how large would the escort be for an emissary with an entourage of our size?
Fortunately, I never dealt with the hierarchy as much as I wish I could. But for an entourage this size, Maiko,
I mean, it's a little on the small side, but SBS doesn't know that.
It's on the small side if they were traveling openly as an escort or as an entourage. But since you're coming in, what is clearly a trade ship and not a big fancy look at our wealth hierarchy ship, it's actually more appropriate. This is the kind of emissary they would send if they were looking to make a discreet arrangement with somebody, as opposed to an open alliance.
So Maiko's gonna convey that as like, what was Booker's question again? Is this a good
is this emissary?
size?
Is this size of entourage a good size for the emissary?
Oh no, not for a frontal assault, but if they're trying to sidle up into Blomkamp's DMs or whatever, then yeah.
Someone translate that for me.
If somebody is trying to get close to Blomkamp, this makes a lot of sense.
If they're trying to do it in a subtle fashion on the DL, I've been trying out some of the slang around when Bite was put to sleep. I don't know if I'm doing it right, but it's fun.
You're very close. Thank you, Maiko.
It's like, was that Okarian?
It's Earth.
Okarian.
All right, then I think this his entourage would be good. At most, we'd add an extra person or two.
What size of security detail would be put on an entourage of this nature?
For a group this size, 1, maybe 2 officers.
And let us hope that it is no more than 1. It'll make things a lot easier.
It should.
All right, then.
It does also depend on how much... What's the word I'm looking for? How paranoid Blomkamp has become over the past few years, but...
So we can use that as a gauge. If he only puts 1 guard on us, he's still, with the rest of the population. If he puts 5 guards on us, then he's gone off the deep end.
Absolutely.
That's a good gauge.
How do
Dare I
know
ask
that?
what the business with Blomkamp is?
Sorry?
Dare I ask what the business with Blomkamp is?
Oh. Murder.
So this is a wet work.
My job is, not Bites.
Ew. That sounds gross. What is it?
That's going to make getting out a little bit more difficult.
Only if we make ourselves known. A private audience is Blomkamp and one other. Would be Blomkamp and 1 guard.
I
Take
mean,
2 out quietly. Not too difficult.
and it's not outside the realm of possibility that an emissary would demand more privacy. So, no one listening in, no snooping.
But
Always
still
assume-
paranoid enough to keep a bodyguard with?
Always
Yes,
assume
I meant electronically. They would demand like something like a cone of silence or
Maiko,
yeah.
always assume that the people that you're dealing with aren't playing by the rules.
But we have ways. There are ways to sniff out snoopers. Like it's common procedure to to have something with you that will detect snooping electronics and to demand that they be disabled to the point where the device won't pick them up anymore.
Always assume that they're not playing by the rules.
Right. But we can at least give Bite the best darn device that I can make.
We can make the demands. We can play the role, and make the best device that you can make. But always assume that they're not playing by the rules that you think that they are.
Worst
That's how
case
we get
scenario,
out of this.
That's
it is.
cheating.
Worst case scenario, I leave him alone until I get a few kilometers away. Then I just need him to walk past a window.
Well, with all that in mind, what do we need to do to prepare?
We'll need outfits. Montage! That's not said by Booker, that's said by me.
I need to get fabricating like yesterday.
Logos also mentions that he will put in the request for the shuttle to dock to give them ample time at morning, as there's nothing like rolling up unannounced and unexpected at a military base to get an unpleasant reaction.
We're still going to need a pilot. Do we want to bring a robotic Logos? Or do we want to bring Nico?
Logos. My vote is for Logos.
That's also where Booker would be putting his vote.
What's gonna look better?
And Logos notes that he does not have to travel in the relatively noticeable form of GT1100.
Yeah, we can just have him basically remote pilot the shuttle, right? Kinda.
Well, he pilots via a drone.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is that it does not have to be the large skeletal humanoid GT1100. He can be a much smaller version.
Yeah.
Whatever would be appropriate for the emissary's automated pilot.
Yeah, the drone that Logos would recommend is actually it can contract down to the size of a sphere that's about the size of a pool ball, and then remove legs and become a spider leg to go where it needs to go and interact with things.
It would also mean that we could slip Logos past along with us.
It is the smallest armature he has. So,
How big is it?
The drone in its entirety is the size of a cue ball.
Naval orange.
An 8-ball? Oh.
All right, so I believe everybody has gone ahead and made some outfits to commemorate the occasion. They are up in the Gorgeous State, or they're coming up in the Gorgeous State of chat. I think everybody's been putting into the cast chat instead of into the community chat, though. So if you all want to copy that over so people can see what you're wearing for this fine occasion. It takes a few hours of work, during which time the communication continues to go at a very rapid pace, and then seems to settle into quiet. The guess is that the communication has become a standby until further orders, but that people are prepared and in place.
Maiko is gonna ask Bite, hey Bite, is there any reason we would have to take Logos with us, kind of subtly, when we leave the shuttle?
I mean, besides me enjoying his company?
Well, I was just gonna say I could make a belt where he's the buckle, but if we don't need to bring him with us, then we don't have to.
I don't believe so. I can pretty much do this all on my own.
Okay.
Maiko,
Yeah?
I don't know how to act like an emissary.
I know.
Okay. Because I don't even know how to do the spoiled brat routine.
Have you ever played a game where you pretend to be somebody else?
Like the AI's VR RPGs? Yeah. I normally played like well, when we played together, I would normally play one of the characters that stay in the back and like don't say much.
This is your chance to try out a different one.
Okay.
Is
Just-
Booker anywhere nearby?
No. I mean, not unless he hangs out randomly with Bite.
Yeah.
No, I think at most he would have been making some porcelain sharp things. Hide in a boot.
Yeah, so, Maiko's like, this is your chance to pretend to be somebody else. Like, I don't know, kind of like you're in one of those, like, dice rolling games or something.
I mean, I can try. Like, that's what the AI did for us back in the day.
So meta.
So the ship has gotten a return from the research station, giving them permission to dock, and directing them to specifically one of the multiple shuttle bays. The station probably has 30 or 40 as a whole, but they're all externally sealed, so it's impossible to say, whether you're going to be the only shuttle aboard or one of 50.
So I think Maiko comes back eventually and is like, sorry, just this quick thing and then I'll yield the floor. I think she kind of came back to Bite and was like, what about somebody that you've read in a story that you can picture in your head and steal some of their lines and some of their mannerisms? Like if you've ever read a really good book with a really over-the-top, just very confident and egotistical.
I mean, yeah, but never. I mean, I can try.
Just steal liberally from other people.
Okay.
Okay.
Booker would like to stop and see Bite for a moment as well, knowing how nervous Bite is. And just give literally the only piece of advice he can really think of. He's been thinking for a few hours and going, okay, I think this might work.
After Michael leaves, Bite's putting back on music. Just it is absolutely, it's gonna be Bring Me the Horizon's Teardrops, and he's just like singing and freaking out.
Help me.
There's going to be a brief wave in front of Bite.
Hi.
Hey. So, my CEO gave us advice on how to do things we were less comfortable with, and I've been thinking about how to give you maybe a piece of advice.
Okay.
So for this, I highly doubt you're used to acting like anything I've suggested.
No, I'm not.
Well, think of each person as a program. Every single person you meet. And what you're trying to do is you're hacking them with your words.
sentient beings don't respond to if system added backslash then whatever else I do for code.
You're thinking too literally. Translate that. What would you need to do to a person to get them to tell you where the bathroom is?
You would ask.
And how would you ask?
I'm sorry to bother you. Where's the bathroom?
All right. Now, if you had to ask, and if the system were not to respond to that, and you had to ask in a more direct and a more provoking manner.
I'm sorry, I guess you didn't hear me. Where's the bathroom?
Do you ever say sorry when you're programming?
No.
Or do you tell it what to do?
Where's the bathroom?
Good. Much better. Literally, treat them like a program. Do not assume them to be anything that you are trying to work with or trying to get them to like you. They have a purpose. Each person has a purpose that you need to get them to do. You do not ask. You do not say sorry. You demand, and you tell people.
I'll try.
And if worse comes to worse, ask Gerard. He seems to know more about this than anyone.
Yeah.
And two last things.
Oh no.
You're carrying yourself as someone who's important. There's a rope attached to the back of to the very top of the bottom of your neck, right where your shoulders are. Someone is pulling it upwards. The rest of the body will move with the. I understand the top of the head. Booker's saying bottom of the neck.
I know.
Spine area.
And Mike was probably behind him like.
I do not mean that. I am being specific on purpose. Tilt your head up. You want them to see your nostrils. You are more important than them, and you are always looking down. Oh, and if someone's not doing what you tell them to do, then you tell them to do it again, but not as nicely.
Okay.
The
Right.
way that you do that is you treat them like they're hard of hearing. And
Thank you, Maiko.
barely speak your language. You have
Thank
to be
you,
really
Maiko.
loud and slow.
Okay. Bite. Be confident. I know that's a paradox to say that, but be as confident as you would be when you're just typing in ones and zeros.
Okay.
Should be easier
It
to
does.
be typing into the data slab, right? And doing text to talk.
That's the plan.
Remember, you are better than the rest of them.
Okay.
This is not just something I want you to think and internalize. This is a fact. You are better than most people. Try to act like it.
I just got a really dumb idea.
Everything
And
the
he's
light touches.
No, he's gonna run to Gerard.
My job is just to grunt. I'm good. And then he walks.
I'm waiting for Gerard to give his advice to Bite too.
Yeah.
Gerard,
Yes.
and Bite's gonna come into the medical area. Do you remember when you did the thingy where you were in my head and we could talk?
Yes.
Can we do that again?
Are you sure you're comfortable with that?
I'm more comfortable with that than I am with trying to be someone I'm not, or try and be confident, or anything like that. I'm really not okay with this. I'm not confident. I'm not somebody who is the face of anything. I am the one who sits in the corner with my hoodie up, listening to my music, and I hide. That's what I'm good at.
Yes, I will do this. But that will just be my words in your head. You will still need to be confident. Your hoodie. Use your words as your hoodie.
Okay.
Music. Anything anyone else says outside of your hearing, unless you want to hear what they're saying.
Okay.
And all of us will be there.
Yeah, that also makes me very anxious. My thought was I could come here alone, hide if and do it quietly, and then no one else would get hurt. But
Sorry.
That's literally never the plan. That's never the plan.
that was the
It's
plan
the
for
worst
Bite.
plan everyone makes.
And Bite, I thought I could get onto the satellite and out without getting hurt. It's what we don't anticipate that the rest of us are here for.
Okay.
And as much as we want to sit here and try to anticipate everything that we're going to do, Galaxy's not like that. There's going to be something that we didn't anticipate. And if we were all there to help adapt to those wrinkles, then the likelihood of all of us getting out of this in one piece are exponential.
Okay.
So, chin up, head up, and talk down.
I guess I gotta go put on this outfit that Maiko and Booker chose. I
It
have a
was
giant.
Maiko. There was no Booker.
No. Booker walked in and went, "How many weapons can you hide on this?" Wait a second.
Well,
No.
I say, at least with the exception of Maiko, we're coordinated. But then your herald should stand out.
Okay. I have a giant floppy hat.
So do I.
And
It's
it's your
great.
hoodie.
So I'm guessing this is probably the tightest thing Bite has worn in the last few years.
Feels so constrictive.
The minute he puts just on the shirt, because I'm feeling like it would be very close to his neck, he's just.
Stop tugging on it.
It's too close.
No, it's not.
Bite.
It's been made
Stop.
to your measurements. All right, arms out to the side. Actually, I'll let you put on the pants yourself.
Thank you.
Imagine they
Maiko's-
button up as opposed to zip up.
They do button up, and Maiko's not going to mention that it's smart fabric that, like...
So he's wearing tight pants too.
Oh, yes.
The fashionable term is leggings.
We can tell your religion.
Or at least guess what you're not.
Uh,
Is that why genes are called true religion?
we have 2 out of 4 players down. All right. So you guys switch back into the shuttle. The drones have done a number to actually like get the logos of the House of Green onto the shuttle itself. Which I don't remember. Micah, was House Green an actual house, or was it being fabricated for this purpose? It was an actual house, right?
I honestly don't know.
Okay.
My intent was for it to be an actual house, for
Okay.
Maiko to have picked some random house.
Okay. Yeah, so there are functioning, like, logos and or not logos, but coats of arms that have been put on the shuttle, although not onto the larger
Crests.
ship. What's that?
Crests.
Yeah, crests. Yeah. Well, with the hierarchy of ball, I'm actually thinking it is specifically like a coat of arms, like the thing that you would find on a shield, translated onto the side of a shuttle. Everybody's still sort of adjusting into their clothes, and some much more comfortably than others. As the
Maiko's gonna look at Sherrod and be like, "You need a hat. You can't go out without a hat."
Oh, well, that's simple enough. Top hat?
A top hat is fine. She's going to have found something that she thinks is Gerard's taste and fabricated it for him. So she's offering it at this point, and it can be whatever you would like it to be. But she's offering it being like, you need a hat. Can't go out without your hat.
Of course not.
Booker, after putting on his helmet, just goes, "Do I need a hat on top of this as well?"
No. Maiko, by the way, has just the floppiest brimmed, wide, Sunday hat. We're talking, the Red Hat Society, the women that wear purple and a red hat, the size of those hats. But it's, white with green ribbon and all that stuff. She's dressed in, Sunday best, but sci-fi. Make it sci-fi.
It's a hat whose brim needs its own zip code.
Basically, yeah. If you've ever been to church in Alabama, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
How to make it sci-fi? There are parts of the clothing is literally programmed to be as floppy and wind-swept as possible at all times.
To drape just
so it looks like it's
right.
just fluttering in the wind a little bit.
Has its own breeze. Oh yeah, I love that. Her earrings are extra sparkly. She does wear a bell, by the way. She does have a bell necklace. It's kind of her personal inside joke. So she is wearing a bell, and so wherever she goes, you hear the click of her heels and you hear the jingle of the bell.
all right, so aboard the shuttle, Logos is piloting, which there's a stick shift style instead of a wheel or anything like that for the shuttle, which the spider is just completely balancing on and using its weight to shift in different directions. Which is a little bit more unnerving than even when he was just a robot sitting there. But the shuttle flies just as smoothly as it ever has when Logos is flying it. Now that you have been through a few different pilots, from Maiko to Nico to Logos, it's actually a lot clearer how skilled Logos is as a pilot in a very subtle way. In that, every turn is smooth. Everything seems like it's been calculated a month ago. He's just going through the motion of it. And as you approach the the research station, he's actually specifically calculated both where Proxima Charis is and the shuttle's approach to give you guys the chance to fly by at least like a third of it. Does that make sense? And kind of get a sense of it from the outside. It gives you a slight view of like there's a number of labs that are at the top of the station, as well as a number of labs that are at the bottom of the station, and multiple pods of them all around on the outside before he finally, pulls into the appointed shuttle bays. The bays themselves are not fancy in any way. They look very functional. It's like kind of small and narrow passages that mostly are going to lead to like small cargo areas. And when the shuttle bays open, the majority of your shuttle is actually on the outside of the station itself. Like it's just adhered in the airlock is being used, as opposed to many of the bays that you've been into where you actually land and open them and just walk outside. There are two Booker's gonna immediately recognize that they are clones, because they're his exact height and his exact build. They're the first clones outside of the ones that assaulted the Codex, that are wearing like full face helmets. Everybody that was aboard the refueling station, you could see Booker face. But the ones that are here are fully like full face coverings. One of them bows his head in like token respect, and doesn't actually like say anything. It's just sort of like a body language of like, come this way. Does that make sense? As they lead you through, there are multiple like turns and tunnels even in the small area. So
I'm assuming Booker is just very lightly tugged at Bite. The second Bite tried to bow back.
Bite probably started to and then was like, oh.
Yeah, so then if Bite already knew not to, then Booker won't do anything.
No, it was your tug that was like, oh, that's right, I'm not supposed to do that.
Oh, great. Yay, Booker was
Just
useful.
like on the back of his jacket, just a little tug between the shoulder blades.
The initial shuttle bay opens up into what is clearly like a security checkpoint of some kind. There's one of the things that you haven't really seen since you were aboard the battleship is there's an abundance of signage, like indicating, lab 1, lab 3, residence, galley. Like there's a constant sort of shifting directional signage all over the place, which is different than many of the places that you've been on, where that kind of thing is almost deliberately what is the word I'm looking for? Many of the stations and whatnot won't put those things up in an effort to force you to wander, especially if they have things to sell. They won't give you direct like, this is how to get exactly where you're going, because they want you to wander around a little bit.
The Costco method.
Kind of, yeah. There might be places that you can go and you can go, oh, this is over here, but for the most part, they're encouraging you to move about, as opposed to this, where the signs not only indicate what is in which direction, but also what degrees of clearance are required for certain directions. Does that make sense? They have 3 ratings that you're seeing in some of the signs, green, yellow, and red. And then you also see 2 signs that simply have like black bars where the security codes were. One of the big things that Byte immediately notices, just with the occasional glance down at the data pad, there is nothing here that is wireless. There's nothing that's connecting to your data pads. Your data pads are connecting to each other, but it looks like almost every interaction with the system is going to need to be directly plugged into the station or accessing through a monitor or something similar. The once you're brought into the security checkpoint, there's a hologram that appears in the middle of it, which Booker immediately recognizes as Blomkamp himself. I would actually like a save from you, a mental save, just to avoid any kind of reaction.
Just realized I was muted. 16 over 12.
Okay. Stoic is your forte.
Stoic is my forte. And damn good looking at the same time.
So, I think I've mentioned before, but for a face claim for Blomkamp, think Jim Parsons, the person who played Sheldon Cooper on The Big Bang Theory. He's not tall, he's not imposing. I mean, he's kind of tall, but it's in like a wiry, I weigh 80 pounds soaking wet kind of way. He has glasses, he has clothing that looks much closer to a uniform or a lab coat than governmental or ornamental. Does that make sense? If those are his fancy clothes, very simple.
Maiko, as soon as she sees what he's wearing, like, gives him the look up and down. It's not a friendly look up and down. She is offended by his sense of fashion. Like, clearly.
He doesn't seem to notice, or doesn't show any signs of caring. He says, "You are the delegation from House Green of the hierarchy of Ball, yes?"
This is Lord Hunter of House Green, and Michael will step forward. And do you guys know what I mean when I say code switching? Have you heard that term before? Switching between, like, audiences. Is that... I'm just looking at Zoom and seeing a bunch of faces looking back at me, except for Sarah's. So I'm just like...
I know exactly what that means. Yes.
So, she has done, like, a full code switch thing. Like, she is still speaking the language that they all understand, but her accent is very clipped. She is, her posture is letter perfect. Like, you could balance a book on her head and she might not even notice. She walks pretty naturally in the heels. She's got the big floppy hat. Like, she is comfortable being ornamental, and she's comfortable with exactly what she's doing. Like, it comes back extremely easily. There's, like, no trace of, like, the friendly, bubbly, chattery. There's just this herald who is unimpressed with whoever's in front of her. So she's like, "This is Lord Hunter of House Green of the hierarchy of Ball. Are you going to meet in person, or are we forced to talk to this facsimile?"
Are you the representative for the delegation?
I speak for the delegation at this time.
Who am I addressing myself to, and who has the power to make decisions on behalf of this delegation?
That would be Lord Hunter. Are we going to speak to you directly or not?
Lord Hunter says, "I am surprised by the appearance of House Green at this particular juncture, but I am not opposed to discussions of possible merit in an alliance. What do you require in the meantime?"
Oh.
Maiko's going to kind of glance back at Bite, and just out of character for me, I assume we've been kind of discussing, did we go with that we wanted a suite, or what?
Yeah, I think that's probably what he would have decided is, let's get a suite first, and then let's see how we do with getting into Blomkamp's office.
Okay. So without giving Bite a chance to respond, sorry, Sarah.
It's fine. It makes complete sense.
Maiko's going to go ahead with, we require a suite for Lord Hunter to reside in temporarily and refresh himself after his travel.
And he looks at you long enough to like make it clear that he's registered the request. Does that make sense? And then looks to Bite, waiting for a confirmation.
Nod your head.
Just once. Would not.
And he kind of gestures to one of the guards. He says, "For your own safety," he says, "I do not suggest wandering the station. There are multiple labs undertaking research that could be very hazardous to your health." He says the same for your entourage. He says, "You are welcome to depart at any point," he says, "but I will not allow anyone to move aboard the station outside of the green areas. These restrictions are a matter of safety, not to be negotiated."
Maiko is going to sort of glance at Bite for a second and then turn back forward and say, Lord Hunter, I just blinked on the word I want.
He'll actually put his hand on Maiko's shoulder, basically saying, "I'm gonna try this now." Just
she's gonna like start, and kind of her body language is immediately going to be that this is a big deal and Mr. Hologram should feel flattered.
And to my request to meet with you in person?
He says, "When there is some availability, I will make you aware." And the hologram clips out.
As he's flitting out, Maiko would glance at Bite and start to say, like, you have our thanks.
Let's get to our suite as soon as possible. I am very tired.
Yes, Lord Green.
Yeah, the not bookers lead you through the station. There's actually quite a bit of it that, even though it's outside of the green areas, that is viewable. The entire central core of the station looks like it's been converted to a cloning, living area, training area for bookers. You can see that there's like all sorts of things that, like, Booker, you kind of vaguely remember, like, not as having gone through it, but have gone through similar training protocols with SBS. Does that make sense? Like, there are, like, leaderboards, and points are being tracked, and they're encouraged to be competitive against one another in various fields. And like, the results of all of those competitions are constantly kept up as, like, a board of, like, shame/honor. Does that make sense? The most of the internal area that is visibly accessible as you're moving through, and everything is like moving walkways, and you stand on this and then it takes you over to another area over here. You can see that, like, much of it is dedicated to the training of those clones at the moment, in the sense of, like, weight rooms, you know, practice ranges and stuff like that. But it also gives a bit more sense of why they don't have much experience, because there's only so much you can do inside of a station. You can't do a lot of, you know, live fire exercises, for one thing. You can't do a lot of, like, let's take this village or let's act in a wilderness area with any real degree of, like, realism. Does that make sense? You had an education that was done planet-side and was able to accommodate a much wider variety of, like, training and survival. Whereas this looks like it's earnestly being done as best as possible with the resources that are available.
Okay.
It's also not to the scale that you would have expected for planetary conquest. Does that make sense? It looks like it's more designed to create highly visible forces of small number.
Okay. So on a slightly off note, Booker's taking this all in, but as player Jacob, I just want to know how well this works very quickly.
Works.
Oh, this.
Oh,
You have to say more than a sentence.
yeah. Mm,
Isn't it? Can anyone else understand him at all?
I can't hear.
No.
The
No,
sound
Yeah,
it's
is
coming through
not
really
coming
garbled.
It's
through.
totally messed up.
Oh,
No, I can't hear you at all.
I'm so sorry.
That would have been very cool.
It would have been
I'm gonna play around with it a bit, see what works.
Okay.
Worries.
Um,
For those of you who have been, friendly with Booker for some time, it's a little interesting to see what looks like kind of teenage age Bookers in and amongst the training groups. Like a little leaner, a little more awkward and gawkier.
Yeah, definitely a few of them are hiding magazines.
And it's also very easy for someone like Gerard with a bit more experience to realize that they don't see a single Booker that looks like they're over 30.
Michael is completely resisting the urge right now to squeal about how cute the tiny Bookers are. But you can tell, Booker. I'm sure you can tell because you probably have seen the look on Maiko's face before of when she's trying not to squeal. There's like trying not to squeal face, I'm pretty sure.
Booker can tell. And sorry, one last time I'm going to try this before I give up for this episode.
Go ahead.
Michael, keep on focus.
That worked
Good.
really well.
That worked better.
That is really cool. But Maiko is just like,
All right. So the area that they take you to is sort of pseudopod shaped on the exterior. Like the whole shelter the whole station has sort of like a spherical orbs. This is just one more of them, but that the entire thing has been dedicated to like a luxury wing for the VIP people. Does that make sense? This could probably house an entire research lab unto itself. Instead, it's been converted to a single like master bedroom and multiple smaller, important servants' bedrooms, private galley, dining area. There are staff there as well. Those staff are Bookers.
Yeah, that's definitely not weird to look at for Booker. But he keeps composure.
Yeah.
It's like watching a mirror do things for him.
Yeah, especially when they're cooking, something that your characters like enjoyed.
Oh, and just watching them screw it up.
They seem to be actually pretty good at it. They might actually even be better than you, given it's all they do with most of their time.
Oh, then Booker's okay with that. Booker was worried. Sorry, I was very worried that it was going to be Booker being upset. I was worried I was going to be upset because they were doing a worse job than I usually do.
Maiko's gonna ask them if they can make a couple dishes from her homeworld and see if they can.
From her homeworld or from the hierarchy of Ball world?
From the hierarchy of Ball world that she comes from.
They seem to recognize some of the dishes as things that have probably been exported to other planets, and are popular, and some they're just like, what's a blood sausage?
Yeah, just make the seafood chowder, please.
Yeah, and the things that they're familiar with, they're happy to give an effort to, and they actually seem to be interested in having somebody taste it that is, tasted it from where it originates and see how theirs compares. Um, the
Right. Make sure to ask for privacy as soon as it's feasible.
From a hacking perspective, this pod that you're in is completely isolated from the rest of the station. Like, installing line shunts here wouldn't let you do anything more than turn off the lights and ovens.
Booker is doing a sweep rather to see whether or not there are any cameras or any other kind of monitoring devices. Mostly because if they are there, he wants to be seen doing so, and if they're not there, he wants to know as well.
So one of the things about the design of the place that kind of catches you is that every single room is built against an exterior glass. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like everything from the servants' room to the dining quarters to the galley they all have a view of space and of the planet. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Do they have curtains?
No. It's designed to give a constant view. It's like the kind of glass that your sniping rifle would never penetrate. Does that make sense? Because it's designed to insulate against the black. It's designed to take like a hit from like a missile.
That's not what he's worried about. But yeah.
But what you realize as you're sweeping is that the bug system is more clever than you thought, because it is built into the frame that holds all of the glass in place. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Booker is going to try and cover those up as much as possible.
They work off of reading the vibrations in the glass. And they're built externally.
Cool. He's going to spray paint the glass black.
You might be able to change the polarity of the glass, but...
Maybe that instead. Booker is deferring to Micah when things of tech are involved.
What about the sniffer that she made? Picking up on anything like hidden?
No, it looks like most of it's designed to, when they built the entire structure of the thing as a piece of spyware, they haven't backed it up with a lot of like internal stuff.
Okay.
As for shorting out or cutting the sound, spraying the glass would be great if it was looking, if it was operating visually. Yeah, it'll be able to stop them from at least seeing what it's being doing.
Oh, okay.
But
So
it won't stop the
it's all audio stuff.
It's
I couldn't tell if they
primarily
were visual or by audio, but okay.
Yeah, no, they're audio.
What happens mechanically if I cool the glass down?
It decompresses the...
Just cooling it down?
Oh, cooling it down. I thought you said pulling it down. I was like...
I heard pulling too.
One,
Pulling too. And
one,
I was like,
it's not designed to retract because it's open to space.
I was the only one that really heard cooling, wasn't I?
Yeah,
Apparently.
So,
cooling. As in to slow the vibrations.
it would distort the audio that they get. It might be able to be reconstructed if they had a sophisticated enough program to do that, but certainly the default system is probably not designed for it.
Lord Hunter.
A much simpler solution is just creating white noise.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It seems we're being listened to. And Miko's going to drop off a little trinket from like a charm bracelet or something and be like, not anymore. Click.
So I can turn off this sound.
It's not completely foolproof.
I'll make sure I keep talking like this then.
Oh, quick pause. Sorry, there's one more detail I wanted to give us as we're going through that I meant to include, but I was kind of trying to do a little of everything. So when you were aboard the refueling station, everything was sort of glitzy and advertising. Does that make sense? There's SPS this and SPS that was getting advertised all over the place. In this place, the advertisements that you're seeing that were sort of anti-psychic, that are, report any unusual mental activity, report any unusual behavior, are about the only thing that are up. Does that make sense? There's none of the SBS advertisement. And it's just a, like, be vigilant, be on your guard. With a definite, Gerard is in different degrees of anti-psychic sentiment. This seems to be very pragmatic in its approach. Does that make sense? It is actively trying to give people looking at it ways to counter the influence of psychic abilities. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Namely being vigilant in conversation with others, noting and reporting abnormal behavior, and self-reporting behavior, reporting for check-ins and that kind of thing. But it's definitely at a level that speaks to paranoia about psychic ability.
Also makes things a little bit more difficult.
Bite will ask the baby bookers to please leave.
Yeah, and they depart, like, out of the entire pod area. Like, they don't just, like, go to the servants' quarters. They're in the medical area.
Are we safe to talk? You're muted.
I would still be cautious. But
We are a vigilant hunter.
can you convey through data pads?
Immediately goes to sit in the corner like he knows what he's doing and just pulls out the data pad. And literally all you all get is a scream. What would be a scream? It's just straight A. For a good, like, 2 or 3 lines. From Bite.
Lord Hunter, might I suggest sitting in this lovely chair that they have provided and admiring the view?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I will be
Locus
watchful.
has remained in his ball form and is in Bite's pocket at the moment.
Good.
I had the whole belt buckle idea, and it turns out that we need him after all. And
He's
nobody
hanging
told me.
out. He's just hanging out. It's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was saying, if he was being left on the shuttle, that's fine. Then he'll still be on the shuttle.
Either way, Bite probably would have, like, unthinkingly done it. Like, he would not have done it on purpose. Like, brought him along.
Yeah, I'm not actually upset about it.
Yes, you are.
I just thought it was funny to have, like, the idea of Maiko having, like, the little armature on the front of her belt, like, half the size that she is. Anyway, Maiko types away on her data pad. Like, you did a great job. You did wonderfully.
I'm so sorry if I was rude to you, Michael. I really didn't mean to. I didn't want it. That's what comes back.
It's strange that I can hear this sound.
So.
And he just looks at his looking at the data pad, and that's still in this robotic voice. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. So
I can turn it off.
Should we do while Blomkamp decides he makes time for you? We could play cards.
What is something? Oh,
We can act as the emissary would. Every now and then, rail about being held up, that your time is more valuable than this. They are listening. They're gathering information on you.
Well,
Nice.
He did say we could explore the green areas of the station, right? GM, that's what he said?
You are correct. You did say the green areas were not off limits.
Then let us request a tour.
All right. And just, should I start making like a riot? Is that going to get their attention?
Not yet. Give it a few moments, a little bit of time, and then start
Okay.
audibly disappointed in the treatment.
Booker is going to take the data pad from Byte for a moment, type in 2 things, hand it back, and you'll notice that there's a little timer. It's going, that is counting down to your freak out.
I will note that House Green does know how to play the long game. If needed.
That's why the timer is set for 20 minutes.
Is that a long time for you, Booker?
No, it's really not. Booker's version of a long time is like, what is? I don't know. Once he waited a couple months for his target to finally walk into his sights. And he only really got annoyed around month 2. Day 22. And so he had to adjust himself slightly, and then he went back to lying down.
Okay. So we're gonna tour. Are we going on a 3-hour tour?
Just as long as the weather doesn't get rough.
With some surprising efficiency, one of the guards actually knocks before returning, and then says, "Governor Blomkamp is ready to meet with you."
Wonderful.
Good. I didn't want to be kept waiting any longer. You're like, does that work? Did I say that right?
And Maiko, that's record spanning efficiency compared to most of the hierarchy of Paul.
Yeah.
Where it would not be uncommon. Yeah, it wouldn't be uncommon to be waiting for 3 days as a show of power.
Excellent. We appreciate the expediency.
And then the guard kind of gestures for Mike to follow.
Maiko's gonna follow as well.
Booker's in the step.
Yeah. Bite was gonna turn and, well, come on then. To the rest of them.
The guard says, "The governor will meet with you privately, but your entourage is welcome to remain outside."
I'm afraid the Lord goes nowhere without me.
Then discussions of state will have to wait until those measures are changed.
So Lord Hunter, doesn't go anywhere without his body men. We, and Maiko gestures to herself and Gerard, we would be able to wait outside if you wish. And she's clearly not sure why.
My father has stated that Jackson stays with me for my own safety.
The guard says, "I am also a guard, and I understand. You will be able," and addresses Jackson, says, "You will be able to see Lord Hunter through the entry door, which will not be locked. However, it is soundproofed to allow for the privacy of discussing matters."
You cut out again.
I've been working for House Green since I was but 6. I've been working for House Green since I was but 6 years old. My words do not go anywhere that Lord Hunter does not wish them to.
Bite accept the terms as long as the door remains open.
As long as the door remains open and Jackson is able to see me, then we should be good.
The guard nods and takes you through. You notice it's the first time you deviate away from like the green security areas. It's mostly green up to a certain point, and then you switch to one of the black labeled ones, and go down it. It does lead to another sort of like exterior pod, but this one you can see as you're approaching is an arboretum. There's a variety of plants and foliage and whatnot that are growing in it that you can see even through the glass of the approach. You can actually see the entire arboretum from the approach. Does that make sense? And the door that opens and closes to admit light is equally transparent. It's designed to kind of showcase what's within it.
Is Booker able to see? We can see the arboretum, but can we see all the like? Are there areas one might be able to hide away within the arboretum?
Even most of the trees are relatively thin. Like Blomkamp is kind of skinny too, so he might be able to turn sideways at just the right angle to like mostly disappear behind a tree. But
Yeah,
like
Booker.
not for long and not for like more than like a few steps to get a different angle. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah, Booker is making it clear that he's ready, but he's not putting his hand anywhere near a weapon.
Okay. The guards immediately kind of offer to Gerard and Micah if you would like to stay somewhere more comfortable, or you'd like to see the station. We are more than happy to show you around.
Gerard will look to bite. And the telepathic message is, what is your comfort level? If you're good, nod. If you're not, just shake your head.
And what you get back, if Bite can respond, is as long as Booker's nearby, I know I'll be okay.
I'll keep the contact up. We'll know immediately if you need help.
Maiko, after kind of glancing over at Bite, will respond like, a tour would be lovely.
At which point Gerard turns on his heel, offers his arm to Maiko, and gestures to the guard to proceed.
I'm just gonna take his arm.
So the sort of corners of the arboretum, like the whole thing is rounded, so corners is a misnomer. But like, if you were to be entering from the east, the north and the south are instead of like just sort of open air trees and whatnot, they're actually like enclosed aquariums that have phosphorescent plants growing inside of them. Like if you were on Earth, you would think like that this might be something you'd see like the bottom of an ocean. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So and they're fascinating because they actually don't look like anything from Earth. They look like almost like jellyfish that have been twisted into like a mineral form or like a plant form or something like that. And you see the hologram of Blomkamp is standing in front of one of them. He says, and he kind of turns, he says, "No disrespect, Lord Hunter." He says, "It is not a matter of security," he says, "but your safety." He says, "I have contracted a contagious disease." He says, "And while I'm working to find a cure for it," he says, "it is best that we not meet face to face." He says, "However, I've arranged for privacy, and I hope you will understand that it is not meant as an affront."
Well, this was not planned, and I was hoping to meet with you in person. You have to understand that in the hierarchy, especially in House Green, it is best to meet in person to get, a feel for the other person.
He says, "I understand," he says, "the wisdom of looking somebody in the eye, shaking their hand." He says, "that kind of thing." He says, "Unfortunately, in this case, that might be fatal for you." He says, "I am myself in something of a suspension tank." He says, "but I assure you at the moment that I am giving you my undivided attention." He says,
All
if
right.
that is any consolation.
That, I guess it must work.
He says,
And I fully believe that if this is possible to Gerard, Bite is sending. He's not here. He's in a tank somewhere.
Why?
He's sick. He's dying. Get back to Booker. See if I don't know. See if you can find him. I can keep the hologram distracted.
Keep talking, keep me informed.
I'll try.
And with that, Booker, are you going to resist this?
Not likely. The chances of you. I think Booker's had some suspicion that you're psychic.
So, with that, I'll be activating another effort and contacting Booker. And Booker, in your head, you hear Gerard. He's not in the office. He's still a hologram and is claiming to be ill.
Geneticist with an illness. It's laughable. Is there any way we can confirm this?
Not without direct contact with him. I can only do this with you and Bite because of our, we'll just call it close connections.
Understood.
But stay on alert because it could also be a reason to get Lord Hunter alone with a plausible deniability if anything goes wrong. After all, we are in a black district with
Yes,
no escorts.
that's why I'm here. Bite remains within sight.
Longcamp to Bite. It says it is House Green which has made the overture, which leads me to believe that they have an interest in something that can be provided to them.
We do. We are interested in, I guess the word is equal distribution. My hope is to make a name for myself out here as the second son, and in hopes of furthering my family's reaches.
Tell them that the family is interested in the soldiers program. You need to keep it on download due to issues within the hierarchy in using such soldiers.
And as you know, the hierarchy isn't exactly favorable towards clones, but my father and myself and my brothers are all very interested in using your clones to further our reach.
It says, so they don't have any concerns about the potential breach of the Ultra. Says, my understanding is that the hierarchy has long had a disdain for, he says, my work. He says that it's possible breaches.
Hence this private, not public meeting.
This is exactly why I asked to speak in private, why I did not come on my family's ship. My family, myself included, finds your work very interesting.
Says, this work is rote. Says, I don't have a problem trading for it. He says it's easily replaced. Says, I have larger concerns I would see addressed. He says, resources from the hierarchy might allow me to shift my focus.
If our resources help you to, I guess, as a layman would say, reach for the stars. I believe that our partnership would be fruitful.
The concern is that the stars are reaching for us.
Possibly, but again, my family's hope is to spread our name further. And with your clones and with your research, maybe even not aging as much may help us.
You're interested in anti-agatics?
That's one field that we are interested in. There are, at least for me, I find genetic experimentation highly interesting.
Be much of a student of history, Lord Hunter.
Strangely enough, I am.
Says, are you familiar with the first psychics and their appearance on Earth?
A little bit, yes. I guess my interest in history is much older.
The first appearance of psychics and their connection to my interest in genetics, he says, might not seem obvious. He says, if you understand the nature of probability, he says, first generation of explorers went out into space. They traveled through the spike drives. They returned. He says, their children gave birth to the first psychics. He says, now, if it had been a single traveler, he says, whose offspring had suddenly shown psychic ability, that would be a genetic anomaly. He says, but instead, dozens of children or hundreds of travelers, he says, all developed similar genetic mutations. Says, you understand there are no accidents.
Yes, I do agree with that.
It says, so what do you find to be a rational explanation for such mutations?
Based upon what you've told me, if the spike drive was the factor, then it would be obvious that the effect of it would be the creation of psychics.
It says the radiation thrown off from the spike drives can be created in a lab or any other environments. He says, even then, he says that particular radiation, he says, should be causing a variety of mutations. He says, not a singular one, over and over, amongst multiple people of various ethnicities, genders. He says, that sort of thing, he says, is the process of deliberate genetic tampering. Something, he says, that was done to people who traveled through spike space. Something which affected their children. Something which created psychics. Something which led to the destruction of a birth. He says, when I say that the stars are reaching for us, he says, I am being literal.
And yes, he's basically kind of opened up the line for Jahar to hear everything, because he's like, ah! He's panicking this whole time. I'm just saying. So then, what do you believe caused said genetic anomaly? I'm curious to hear your theory on the matter.
He says, quite simply, he says, I believe that there are creatures, he says, that exist outside of our understanding of space and time. He says, creatures that we become closer to, he says, when we enter the space. He says, a folded reality, he says, which we call spike space. He says, I believe that while we can shield ourselves to an extent, he says, we don't understand the extent of their abilities. He says, and I believe they reached through those shields, says, and changed the genetics of those who passed through their space. And I do not believe they are kind and benevolent beings who wish for our advancement. Says, if one witnesses the hollows of the first psychics, their minds literally burning out of their head, says, destroying their bodies, says, the fits of rage, says, and homicidal mania that they were prone to, says, one finds it hard to imagine benevolent beings inflicting such a thing.
Bite. Ask him if he believes these beings of his were responsible for the scream.
So then, by your logic, the scream was caused by an external entity?
Says, or it says, it twisted us so against ourselves that we were the scream, says, but by its will. And that's where I'm going to close for the night.
Oh.
What the fuck?
Bite just trying that whole time. I was like, oh no, somebody come help Bite.
Somebody come get him.
The room is soundproof. Booker is agitated. So he doesn't know what the hell is being said. But me, personally, listening to that, has every instinct of run.
That's what Bite's doing now. Bite's like, how do I get out of this? How do I get out of this?
Who did you set up a meeting with, you guys?
Dr.
What did you do?
Yeah, literally Frankenstein.
You threw Bite to like
It's
wall.
Frankenstein.
Frankenstein.
It's like, I met him one time and now I'm going to have nightmares forever. Thanks.
Effectively, Booker, you better kill this guy, please. Oh my god. Yeah, somebody needs to pull the fire alarm.
Oh yeah, they'd totally not see through that.
Oh
shit!
Quick,
the
someone tell me
station's
where
decompressing.
someone
no.
tell Booker where they actually are, because he doesn't believe this in a body tank for a second.
So for all of you out there in YouTube land,
Yes, we should close out. Sorry.
You should hit the bell so that you know when the next one comes up. Subscribe, like.
Show your enemies why you're better than they are by watching this.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out. And we're glad to have everyone here listening to the campaign. You have to close this out in the proper Dirty 20 gaming fashion. Everyone, please be nice to one another. And we will see you next week.
Night, y'all.
Good night.
and be nice
Bye,
to
in
yourselves.
robot voice.
You deserve it.